karvavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyakta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. On the fourth page, there is this invocation verse. Vasudevendra Yogindram Vasudevendra Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodha Vidhiyate. So last number of years we have been discussing this text called Tattvabodha. Tattva means truth or reality. That means that. And Tattva means a state of Tat. Tat means Brahma. Tattva means the reality, that is Brahman, or can be called God, or self, or consciousness. Tattvabodha, the knowledge of Tattvam, the knowledge of truth. Is this knowledge important to us? Can we not live our life without this knowledge, which millions of people are living their life? Is there any need that we should know what Tattva or truth is? Answer is yes. It is not only important, it is essential knowledge or inevitable knowledge. Something that we must know. We may not know the consequences of not knowing the reality, and therefore we would think that our life is going on smoothly, nicely, without knowing God, without knowing self, without knowing truth. But unfortunately that is not so, because we are born with the knowledge of truth. Truth is our own self. Self or Atma is self-revealing. Therefore, by default, we are conscious of ourselves, conscious of the self, conscious of the truth. When there is consciousness, there is always the possibility of misconception about what we are conscious of. Vedanta gives the example of rope snake. That in the evening, when there is not enough light, when taking a walk in the garden, it is likely that a piece of rope is falsely taken to be a snake by us. It's likely. When a rope, which is an innocent entity, is misconceived to be a snake, for example, it creates fear in us, whereas the rope is innocent, would not cause any fear, but the way we perceive the rope causes a fear. So thus, we are conscious of rope, but not knowing the rope correctly or knowing it wrongly. So we are constantly conscious of the truth. We are conscious of God, conscious of self, because it is nature of self, or truth, or God, to reveal itself. So by default we know that I am. Each one of us knows I am, that I am conscious. So that knowledge of I is there constantly, effortlessly. However, just as in case of the rope snake, see, if I had not been aware of the rope as in pitch dark, then the notion of snake would not have been created. No problem. In broad daylight, if I see the rope as rope, then also there is no problem. But in inadequate light, as in twilight, I see that object all right, but take it wrongly, take it to be different from opposite of what it is. So also I am conscious of myself, but I take myself to be contrary to what I am. So fortunately or unfortunately, we are born with this notion or conclusion about ourselves that I am so and so. And that causes a sense of limitedness, separatedness from everybody else. So I feel to be a limited entity, separate from others, one among countless. They were different, sometimes isolated, lonely. It is this which is the cause of our unhappiness. We may think that the cause of unhappiness is some event or happening out there that I did not get what I wanted. I got what I did not want. So those are the things which we think are the causes of our unhappiness. But really speaking, my conclusion or notion or false perception of myself is the cause of unhappiness. We never thought about this, nor has it ever occurred to us that it is my conclusion or notion or judgment about myself that is what causes a sense of incompleteness and unhappiness and sorrow. And therefore, this sorrow arising from a sense of smallness, inadequacy, incompleteness is always there in the background. When an event triggers that, then I become conscious of that and I become unhappy. I try to avoid that consciousness of my being small by keeping myself engaged in various things. By engaging in activities to escape my consciousness of myself, and I'm partly successful in that way. There are times when I do become free from unhappiness. But it comes back, and particularly when something happens out there that triggers the already existing sense of smallness, it is triggered, I become unhappy. I think that that is the cause of unhappiness, but that is only a trigger. When it switch on, the fan starts running, so you may think that it is switch that is running the fan. That switch that triggers the flow of electricity which runs the fan. And so also what happens out there, which we may brand as unfavorable, as unhappy, as unfortunate, etc. They are only triggering points, triggering what is already there. The sense of smallness, incompleteness is there, is triggered by the events outside. And therefore our conclusion is that these events or happenings outside are the cause of my unhappiness. This has been my conclusion. And therefore I endeavor constantly to bring about favorable events or favorable situations so that I'll be happy. Unfortunately, it is the nature of everything to change. Therefore, what at this moment is favorable, next moment turns around and becomes unfavorable. Therefore, this endeavor on my part to derive happiness from some event is always short-lived. This is human life. And therefore, since it is the incorrect or untrue knowledge of self that causes sorrow, therefore, the true knowledge of self will remove the sorrow. If you thus understand how, number one, we cannot escape the awareness of ourselves because it is self-aware, self-revealing, how we constantly have a judgment about ourselves that I am a small limited being, and how that conclusion or judgment is the cause of my unhappiness. If you understand that unhappiness is the result of the ignorance of the self, or the wrong knowledge of the self, then the importance of the right knowledge will become very clear. Even though this has been discussed millions of times, every time we start this class, we start with this. Some of you, they remember this, Swami, you're repeating yourself. It is true. But we have to bring this back to our memory to recognize what the source of our sorrow is or unhappiness is. It is not my son, not my daughter, not my spouse, not my neighbor, not my boss, not my children, not anybody. The cause of unhappiness in the form of the false notion about myself, wrong conclusion about myself is built in. And maybe my son or daughter, X, Y, Z, trigger that, and that's how I think they are the cause, whereas the cause is lying within my own self. Since we think that the cause is out there, therefore we are constantly endeavoring to change things out there so that they become favorable to me. Whereas the main problem remains intact. And this is what Vedanta seeks to solve by first making us aware of what is the basic cause of our problems in life. The only problem that we have is problem of sadness. There is no other problem. Others are all situations or events. The only problem that human being has is the problem of sadness, sorrow, unhappiness, grief. That is the reason why the Bhagavad Gita begins with description of the sorrow or grief of Arjuna. The Vishada, the grief of Arjuna, where Arjuna represents an ordinary human being who is also grieving, and Bhagavad Gita provides us a solution. So what's the cause? The false knowledge of self. What is the solution? The true knowledge of the self. So that is called Tattvabodha. The true knowledge of Tattva or the self or the truth. And that knowledge is given in the form of what Vedanta calls Viveka. Viveka means separation of one from the other, where these two entities are so identified with each other that where there are two, there is the notion of one. Therefore, we have to recognize two as two. Separation of the Atma from Anatma, self from the non-self. Comparable to separation of the actor from the costume. Actor who is a very wealthy person puts on the costume of a beggar, comes on the stage to play his role. And someday, because of intoxication, it is likely that he may think that I am a beggar. Normally he is aware, but someday it happens. When looking at himself in the mirror before coming to the stage, he sees a beggar there. I am a beggar. So actor has a knowledge of himself, but the false knowledge. And that thought that I am a beggar makes him miserable. Because a beggar constantly suffers from a sense of deprivation, from poverty, deprivation. People ignore, even insult. What should that beggar do in order to become free from the sorrow? Knowing that I am the actor. So actor and the costume, when both of them become one, then there is a beggar created there. Or I am the beggar, that notion is created with an identification of the costume. When the actor is identified with the costume, then there is a notion in him, I am the beggar. This actor, who is in reality a very wealthy person, is no real cause of unhappiness, except his notion, I am the beggar. That notion is the cause of unhappiness. So what you know, what has to go is not the beggar, the notion that I am the beggar, that has to go. And therefore, that actor has to be taught. On his own, he will never come to realize that his conclusion is wrong. He has concluded I am a beggar, and in no circumstances that conclusion will go. Whatever experiences he has seems to only substantiate that conclusion. Somebody needs to tell him, hey, your thinking about you is wrong, you are not a beggar, you are a wealthy person. So what does this beggar need to do to become wealthy? Not invest money in a business or something, just to know that I am wealthy. So also this beggar, I feel like a beggar. No, Swami, I don't feel like a beggar, but when I think, I take myself as a limited entity. And limited person wants limited freedom, so there is always a desire, an expectation in me. I am constantly seeking favor from the world. O world, please make me happy. O spouse, please make me happy. O children, please make me happy. O neighbor, my boss, whoever X, Y, Z, whoever I come in contact with, there is an expectation involved there. We may not be aware of that. But in every interaction, every relationship, this expectation of mine is involved because I am a needy being. And anytime I relate to anybody, I relate to anybody as a needy person. And therefore, in some way or the other, I look at you as hopefully a means of fulfilling my need. So I expect from you to fulfill my need. I expect from you that you should make me happy. It's called expectation. That expectation that you should make me happy may manifest in many ways. That you should dress in a certain way, walk in a certain way, talk in a certain way, do this, not do this. All kinds of conditions I may impose upon you. But behind that all, there is one requirement. Please make me happy. You're begging for happiness, begging for love. And that expectation is involved in every interaction, in every relationship. That's the reason why you can make me unhappy. By not fulfilling my expectation, I empower you to make me unhappy. I empower the world to make me unhappy. Not necessarily because the world has the capacity to make me unhappy, but I empower the world to make me unhappy by entertaining desire. Please love me. Please make me happy. Please, I'm always seeking help. A helpless creature that I am. Thus, I relate to world from this standpoint of helplessness. No, Swami, I don't, but then I hope that you are not. I wish you that you don't. And I don't only insist that this is true, but I am in all likelihood. If we deeply look at our mind, where our mind is coming from, we are most likely to find that mind comes from the expectation or a certain need, unexpressed need. Sometimes I may not be aware of the need also. The mind is very tricky. Mind has its own agenda and wants to fulfill the agenda through me. The mind has its expectation. That's how, in my interaction with you, I manipulate you. I manipulate others so as to make them favorable to me, to make them fulfill my need. I will please you. That is also manipulation. So, very often, my interaction is the nature of pleasing the world. So, if I please you, you will please me. But different people may have different ways. But one thing is common. Everybody feels a sense of lack or want within, therefore hopes and wants the world. World means whoever you interact with to fulfill your need. That's our life. So you should understand how this ignorance is pervading in our life and how that is the cause for our unhappiness, sadness, grief, disappointments. Whereas Vedanta teaches there is no need for that. So here this text describes, we have discussed a lot of things. The last topic that we discussed, this was 3 years ago, topic of Jivan Mukta. If you haven't gone through that, but still, page 40 or page 39. Page 39 of this book. The last sentence says, Evam cha Vedanta Vakyaihi Sadguru Upadeshena cha Sarveshu Abhibhuteshu Yesham Brahma Buddhi Utpanna Te Jivan Muktaha Bhavanti. There is this concept of Jivan Mukti, Jivan Mukta. Mukta free, free, liberated, Mukta. You know, Mukta means free. Jivan Mukta hai, free or liberated even while living. Jivan means one who is living. Liberated or free while living. Now this is a very important point to note. That Vedanta talks about moksha even when we are alive. Many others talk about moksha after death, in terms of going to some paradise, going to some location where you will be liberated. Vedanta teaches that it is possible to be free or liberated even while we are alive. And really that is what should interest who knows what will happen after death. They tell us, but But this is something that we can verify. When he said that, you have the potential of becoming free or liberated even while you are alive. That means that what we are taught is available for verification by us. If you are told that you will be liberated after death, when you go to paradise, or Brahmaloka, or some other loka, like Vaikuntha, etc., then we may accept it. Because it is said by an individual who is very reverential, it is said by a scripture whom we revere. But it is a belief which is unverifiable belief. I cannot verify that statement, at least in my lifetime. Hopefully it will be verified when I go to heaven, but when I am here, I cannot verify that I will become liberated when I go to heaven. But when I am told that you have the potential of being liberated, free, mukta, even when you are in this body, when you are alive, then that statement can be verified by me. So verifiable belief and unverifiable belief. This is the expression that Puja Swami used to use. That you will be liberated after death when you go to a certain realm, that is unverifiable belief. It will be verified then. When you are told that you can be liberated even in this body, it is verifiable belief. Therefore, the kind of belief of Shraddha, there is a word called Shraddha, which is trust. The trust that Vedanta expects from us is of the nature of verifiable belief. You can verify that in this life itself. But Swamiji, when will that happen? Suppose it doesn't happen in my lifetime, then what? Vedanta also teaches that becoming liberated is not an event. Although it is presented as a realization, some kind of event that at 4 o'clock afternoon, Friday, on given that I became liberated, that's maybe so. Even this liberation doesn't have to be an event. It would be an event if I am not liberated before that moment, I become liberated at that moment, then it will be an event. Follow? What's an experience? That which did not exist a second before, and that which happens now is called an experience. It's a very famous, very common word used by people, experience. Nothing wrong in that. But rather than looking upon this liberation, moksha, freedom as an event, as an experience, I prefer to understand that as a process. It is not that at a given minute I got liberated and I was bound until then. That would be a miracle or something like that. But Vedanta teaches that you are already liberated. Therefore, we do not have to become liberated. We have to own up the liberation. You may remember this story of a lamb and a lion. You must remember. A lioness in a forest once gave birth to a lion cub. And the poor lioness died by giving birth to this cub. And the cup, there was nobody to look after that. And a cowherd man with his herd happened to pass by. He had a big, large herd of lambs. Passing by, he saw this lion cub, sort of helpless. He took pity on him and picked up and took that little lion cub with him and started feeding it milk and whatever, and then the thing started growing. So this little lion was growing in the midst of lambs. You see lambs all around, so you think that you are also a lamb. So this lion cub grew with this notion that I am a lamb. This is the false notion about the self. And it looked upon itself as a lamb, even started making his meow, these kind of sounds also. That's how it used to produce sound like a lamb. This herd of lambs, and once a real lion happened to be around, and these lambs smelled and then they started running away. The lion was sort of chasing them and they saw that lambs are running away from me, but a lion also is running away from me. What is this, a lion running away from lion? The lion could not believe. So lion speeded up and caught hold of that smaller lion that was running away. Lion cub caught hold of it. The poor cub pleaded, please, don't kill me. I'm just a lamb, don't kill me. Who are you? I'm a lamb, but don't kill me. Who says you're a lamb? I know I'm a lamb. See, I can make this bleating sound. So then the lion led this lion cub to is a pond which is filled with water. Now the lion says to the lion cub, look at me. Yes. Who am I? You're a lion. Now look at yourself in the water. Yes. What do you find there? I find myself. What do you find? I'm a lion. Who am I? You're a lion. Who are you? I'm a lion. And lion roared, and the lion cub also roared. So it is not a just to become lion. The one who already is lion and looks upon itself as a lamb is to recognize that I am lion. That lamb is a notion, false notion. This story is just to indicate how there is nothing new happening here. It is owning up of what I am. Although in case of human being, we require something more than just being told that you are Brahman. That's what they tell us, Tattvabodha, you are Brahman. Like that lion cub was told you are a lion, so also the teacher tells me, Tattvabodha, you are Brahman. However, that does not sink in me right away because we are a special case, human being is a special case. What is a special case? That I have always thought and looked upon myself like that lion has always looked upon itself as a lamb, always looked upon myself as a jivatma, as a small, helpless creature. And I lived countless lifetimes also with that conclusion. So it has been deeply rooted into me. So even when I am told you are alive, you are Brahman, that does not impact me. Therefore, in order that this teaching impacts me, it is necessary that I should transform my mind into an impactable mind. So that becomes an additional effort that I need to make, that my mind should become an impactable mind. A mind which is touched by this Upadesha. And Vedanta says that process is called Antahkarana Shuddhi, the purification of the mind. The impurity of the mind has made my mind very insensitive, and therefore this just doesn't touch me. I need to make my mind sensitive. Sensitive to what is. Release my mind from its false conclusions and align itself with what is. That process is called Antahkarana Shuddhi. Vedantins will say that we should make our mind free from the Ashuddhi, impurity of likes and dislikes, attachment, aversion. It's a process. Mind does not become purified overnight. It is a process that impurities are constantly being removed. Like plucking out the weeds from the garden. It's a process. So the plucking out, sort of, this likes and dislikes from mind is a process. As is likes and dislikes, or what you call ego. See, generally we use the word ego. Give up the ego. What should understood the word ego is likes and dislikes. You don't need to give up anything else. You don't need to give up individuality. You don't give up, disappear from this world. What you need to give up is the attachment and aversions, likes and dislikes, or these inner impulses of lust and greed and anger, jealousy. Those entities have entered into my mind. I have to get rid of them, because they are not the inherent nature of my mind. These evils or demons have managed to enter into my mind. They have encroachment to enter, and they have taken hold of the control of my mind. Therefore, I need to release my mind from the control of these negative tendencies of anger and greed and lust and jealousies, hatred, self-dissatisfaction, self-dislike, self-rejection. I must become free from that. And so the process of karma yoga is being taught, prayers are being taught. We need Ishvara Anugraha, the grace of Ishvara, to get rid of these impurities. Thus, the purification also is a process. As we keep on getting rid of this impurity of raga dveshas, the mind progressively attains purity. As the mind attains purity, it becomes more and more sensitive. Then this teaching touches us more and more and more. It's not that overnight. So, that's why I discovered. So, the fact that I am Brahman is a fact of discovery. That everything is Brahman, everything is Ishvara. What is the Ishvara is a fact that is being progressively discovered by me. It becomes more and more real to me, and a day comes when I become abiding in that phase called Jivan Mukta. So this mukti or liberation is not an overnight miracle or something like that. Although it may appear as a miracle for some people, for whom there was something holding them back, and that obstacle got removed, and it is possible that it came as some kind of a revelation. But he is not created at that moment. And for example, about Ramana Maharshi, they say at the age of 16 there was a revelation that I am consciousness. That cannot be something that is new, it is something which was there all along from many births and was obstructed because of some karma, and when that obstruction went away, it just became evident. So don't look for some event or some magic or some miracle. It is a process of self-growth which requires a self-effort, a commitment, a self-effort. And this one requires a greater commitment, greater effort, because we are swimming against the tide. The tide, the nature of mind is that the mind is under the influence of dislikes, and these negative tendencies or impulses. And we want to overcome them, so we are in a way swimming against the tide, and therefore quite a lot of effort is needed. That is the real effort that is needed in our life, which requires Ishvara's grace, which requires serving Ishvara with our karma yoga, prayers, puja. All of these are means of getting the grace of Ishvara. And Bhagavad Gita seems to say that the most effective means is serving the world. Which is Ishvara. Anyway, so therefore we progressively discover the world to be Ishvara, myself to be Ishvara, and then a day comes and we abide in. That's called Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukti or liberation while living is a process, not an event. Because we already are there, and there is something that is obstructing the manifestation of that. As the obstruction moves away, so the manifestation becomes evident. So this is one of the most important teachings of Vedanta, the state of Jivan Mukti, the state of being liberated while living. And that is what would create enthusiasm, inspiration or motivation in us. It is likely that if you are told that you will be liberated after death, there are some people who will not accept this thing. I don't believe. Because unverifiable belief, and then there were some people choose me not to accept it. But this is a verifiable belief, and therefore you can convince anybody you have to verify it. And not that you will verify someday, you will keep verifying every step you go in that direction, you will verify. So we also, as our mind becomes free from impurity, we discover the inner freedom, the inner joy. It's for us to discover and verify. So this Jivan Mukti is what we were last discussing and discussed that. And so in this statement that we just read, at the bottom of page 39 of this handout, एवं च वेदांत वाक्य ही सद्गुरु उपदेशेन च सर्वेषु विभूतेषु येषां ब्रह्म बुद्धि उत्पन्ना ते जीवन मुक्ताः भवन्ति. Evam, in this manner, as it's been described so far in the text, Vedanta Vakya hi Sadguru Upadeshena cha. Vedanta Vakya hi, by the statements of Vedanta. In fact, only one statement of Vedanta. The whole Vedanta can be reduced to one statement. That is called Mahavakya. A major statement that reveals the identity of Jiva and Brahman. Tattvabodha, that the word. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. What is a Mahavakya? Vakya means a statement. Mahavakya, major statement. So what's the major statement that of Vedanta? That statement that reveals the identity between one who looks upon himself as Jiva and Brahman. So this is all that Vedanta is striving to communicate. That you are Brahman. That each one of you is Brahman. Everything is Brahman. What is Brahman? I am that Brahman. Brahman means limitless. The word Brahman, when you look at the derivation of how the word is derived from root Bru, it means something that is vast, limitless. So teaching is so simple. Say, hey, what is and limitless also means boundless, that also means happiness, that also means ananda, fullness. What is expression of boundlessness, happiness, fullness. In fact, there is no such thing as grief or sorrow anywhere. Don't tell me, Swami, you went through all this COVID and you mean there is no grief anywhere? We have been grieving so much. We lost our friend and so many of our near and dear ones had to go through this pain. How is there no grief? I will not want to question, it's an emotional issue. But philosophically, emotion is felt here, philosophy is understood there, and we have to, a time should come when they merge, then we are really grown into a mature person. If philosophy does not simply remain at the level of thinking, and my behavior is guided by my emotions that are altogether based on old wrong thinking. So that is called the Antahkarana Shuddhi or purification of mind, where the mind is slowly transformed to become aligned with that thinking. Thinking is very high, I am Brahman, but when it comes to practice, practice is carried out by the mind, that emotional faculty. So when the emotions are aligned with this understanding, this is called Antahkarana, the emotional maturity. We can call Antahkarana Shuddhi, purification of mind, maturity of mind, self-growth. Then this teaching becomes a reality to me. That yes, you are right. I appreciate, I am Brahman. When my mind also cooperates with me, mind also understands, sees the fact. It is possible for us to cultivate our mind to that extent. That's what we have to do. And that possibility is there for everyone. So those who have seen this fact, or realized fact, known the fact, seen this, gained that wisdom, they discover their freedom even while living. They jivan mukta. So this statement says that not only I am Brahman, you are Brahman, what is his Brahman, what is his limitless, what is his God, what is his beautiful. That you are beautiful, he or she is beautiful, I am beautiful, what is beautiful? Don't tell me, Swami, how can you see beauty in a snake and how can you see... everything is beautiful. Everything is such grace, anything created in nature. There is a rhythm, there is a grace and everything. Look at a horse, look at, how its movement is. Look at a tiger, look at a lion. You look at the snake, look at cat, dog, anybody. If you are open to appreciate what is, cat I don't like, then I will shut the door. I have shut the door. I don't care for dogs. Well, you have shut the door. When moment I say I don't like something or I like something, I am shutting the door both ways. When I say I like something, that is only the reference to something I dislike. In saying I like this, I am only declaring I dislike something else. So liking is good, which is not accompanied with a dislike. That is fine. I love oranges, that means I don't love apples. That is a love which is opposed to something. But here is a possibility, is Vedanta that teaches the possibility. You can see beauty in everything because that's what it is. It is beauty which has manifested as this universe. Beauty, happiness, fullness, Brahman, God. That alone is manifest in the whole universe. And that is called the self-growth or purification of mind. When I can see that becomes my experience. That is, I see the harmony everywhere. Then there is no need to meddle anything, no need to manipulate anything, because what is beautiful. Today I keep on manipulating things to make them beautiful. I arrange things this way, I change it that way. This color, that color. Nothing wrong in all of this, but then today I'm trying to make things beautiful. And because I don't see them beautiful as they are, therefore I need to change them to make them beautiful. We are not dismissing the idea of art, etc. But what I'm saying is that a wise person does not see the need to change anything to make it beautiful, because he sees what is beautiful, which is what it is. For example, how Vedanta explains creation, how the universe is created. Before the universe was created, what was God? All there was God, or Sat, or Chit, or Ananda, Brahman, or God. Then he created a universe. Now there is no other substance with this God to create. So what happened? He created out of himself. Not out of himself. He himself became the universe. Did not become. He appears as a universe. The only way that God can create universe is when God, Brahman, manifests as the universe. So what is this manifestation of Ishvara? This wonderful teaching, this is Vedanta. And right now we don't see that is where meditation can help us, taking a statement like this and see how there is harmony, how there is beauty, how there is oneness. So meditation is required when something is not, I don't appreciate things as they are, then I make a special effort to create the state of mind where I can see the validity of these statements. One kind of meditation. But at least can you imagine a situation for yourself when everything appears beautiful to you, where you find no need to change anything, where you find that you are happy with what is. Can you imagine the situation? Oh, you mean with my spouse? Even with spouse also. That was the most challenging thing. It is imagine and enjoy. If I open the eyes, it doesn't, but I can close my eyes. That's called meditation. Really? Close my eyes and say, oh yeah, it's enjoyable. How? Then you can visualize a given thing as, but see that it is of the nature of joy, happiness. So meditation to fill the gap between what I see and what is, that's one way of meditating. How wonderful life would be if all of us became, enlightened like this. There will be Brahmaloka, is there not? No conflict, nothing but love is flowing, which is what is reality. And love always gives out, love always offers itself. Love always is happy in giving, in serving. They call it sacrifice. That's a big word. That's why Lord Krishna teaches that you give so that you will discover love. It's called faking it till making. If I love, I would automatically be generous and giving. So become generous and giving. Even if you don't feel like that, someday you'll really become. Because that is our nature. When I act generously, then I'm only acting in keeping with my true nature. So someday it will become reality for me. Or it will keep becoming reality for me. So Jivan Mukta, a person who is liberated while living, is the one who thus sees Ishvara everywhere, Brahman everywhere, beauty everywhere, happiness everywhere, fullness. Even that picture, the possibility itself is so wonderful, so inspiring. And therefore, on the page 40th, this Jivan Mukta or liberated while living is described in the Vedantic terms. In keeping with what has been described so far, in that context, a liberated person is described here. So, we will just read that. Nano Jivan Muktaha Kaha. Then a question that they become Jivan Muktaha. Who is a Jivan Mukta? Jivan Muktaha Kaha? Jivan Mukta, liberated while living. Who is the one who is liberated while living? Who is Mukta? So a long reply is given in the next passage. Yatha dehoham purushoham brahmanoham shudrohamasmiti duranischayaha tatha naham brahmanaha na shudraha na purushaha किंतु असंगः सच्चिदानंद स्वरूपः प्रकाश स्वरूपः सर्वांतर्यामी चिदाकाश रूपोऽस्मीति दृढ़ निश्चय रूप अपरोक्ष ज्ञानवान Jivan Muktaha. So liberation is described in a term that we can appreciate. So how do I feel about myself right now? Yatha, just as Deho, by default, when I think of who am I? This body I am. Therefore, Purushoham, I am a man or a woman. Brahmana, I am a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. You see, this is described in the terms that were prevalent at that time, when this teaching was imparted. Meaning that I have an identity right now. Who am I? I have an identity. I'm an individual. Now we are so much given to, committed to, or strongly feel our identity, which is fine. The world is constantly working. Everybody wants to have an identity, identity crisis, etc., etc., which is fine. As long as that identity helps me to have a self-respect or self-dignity, as long as that identity helps me to function and negotiate through the life, so long it's fine. But then, when the mind is seeking something higher than just an identity, when I realize that in that identity I may be distinguishing myself from others and that way having a sense of self-dignity, when I realize that even that also is limiting me, when I have an identity that I'm so and so, that means that I am not anything else. As Swami would say, when this person says, this is my house, he's saying, no other house is mine. I'm so and so, which means I'm nothing else. So that identity is all right as long as it is required for me to perform my vyavahara and do what is to be done. Our own scriptures give identity to us. For example, a young man who is just running around is not identity. You are a brahmachari, upanayana, this sacred thread is given. Now, he is called so and so. Now you have this duty. The moment with identity comes responsibility. Then vivaha, then he got married. Now you are a man and wife and identity and the responsibility. So Vedas also do employ this method of providing identity to a person, self-respect, self-dignity, and assign appropriate responsibilities to that person so that he can own up that identity and grow out of the identity. The purpose of giving identity is for this individual to someday grow out of identity. So this is the time. This knowledge of the true nature of myself enables me to become free, because the identity has a limitation associated with it, is it not? So when I say I am a successful man, well, I am not a failure. I am a great man, I am not small. I am already excluding everything other than that. So an identity is an excluding process. When I exclude, I get excluded also. Not only do I exclude you, but I also exclude myself. Now having identity means what? A life based on division. Now that may help in practice to negotiate the life. But we must recognize that even that identity, however great that identity is, with identity is always associated a sense of separatedness. A sense of excluding and being excluded, a sense of limitation. So here, Jivan Mukta, the one liberated, is described as free from all identity. Now, how spontaneous that knowledge is, or how spontaneous that knowledge should become. Yatha dehoham, purushoham, brahmanaham. Right now I think I'm a body, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm Brahmana, I'm Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, etc. This is my conclusion right now about myself, my perception of myself. That perception undergoes a complete transformation when I become free from this identity which is brought about by identification with my body and mind. Tatha naham brahmana, naham shudra, na purusha. I recognize, no, I am not a brahmana, I am not a purusha, I am not a stri, I am not shudra, I am not so and so. Then who am I? Satchidananda Rupa, I am Satchidananda Swarupa. Asanga, unconnected, unattached to this body mind complex. Prakasha, nature of consciousness. Sarvantarami, self of all. Chidakasha Rupasmi, on the nature of the consciousness, like all pervasive, boundless consciousness, like the space. It is Dhruvanishchaya. So thus, my own perception of myself undergoes a transformation. From what it is today, that I am a body, I am a Purusha, I am Stri, I am so and so. That perception of myself undergoes a complete transformation. When I don't just declare I see, right now I don't declare I see myself as a man or a woman. So spontaneously I see myself as Brahman, as consciousness, as Ananda, as love, as happiness. This is called Jiva Mukta. That's all. What has happened now? What has happened is a complete transformation in self-perception. How wrong perception was the cause of the bondage and all suffering, the right perception is cause of freedom and all happiness. So this is what Vedanta is seeking to help us do, is bring about a complete transformation in self-perception. Not in self, in self-perception. Basically, I am all right as I am, but I am not all right as I see myself to be. Therefore, when that transformation happens in the way I see myself as Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham. That's called Jivan Mukta. So we'll take a break at this point today and continue tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru